So let's get cracking. Where topic of the morning or today is testing candidates. And I'm super excited about this because, let me pin myself. I've failed at hiring more than I've succeeded, and I've spent a lot of time working on this concept of testing. And so what I want to do is I want to kick us off. I'm going to use Ashley. Can you help us for a second here, please?
Yep.
Can you tell us about an experience you've had with hiring someone who had all the credentials, all the experience, interviewed well, only to find out they were quite useless? Do you want to tell us your experience with that?
Yeah, well, that kind of sums it up pretty much. Yeah, I think a lot of people are really good actors or actresses and they look amazing on paper, and you do all the right things. You put them through your interviews, go on to second interviews. We've even done, a computer literacy test as well before giving them the contract, and they can talk the talk, but when it comes time to walking the walk, they just can't do it and they're not up to scratch. Yeah, we've experienced a fair bit of that in the last year.
Good. I'm sure some of the others as well have experienced this. And it's all too common. And what we're talking about this morning is not how to find the right candidates. This is not the entire recruitment process. It's just zoning in on one element of it. And it's really about the concept we're going into this morning is you've said you can do it. You've written down that you can do it. Your experience says you can do it. Now prove it. All right. And I've had this experience hiring juniors. I've had this experience hiring senior people, even more so. Okay, so this is actually the solution to being unpleasantly surprised by how the difference between what people say they can do and what they can actually do once they join your company. And because the cost of it is huge, you go, "Oh, God, they're in here. I may as well really commit to the onboarding process." And then they're kind of behind, and then we get these mental kind of conversations with ourselves. Maybe it'll come good. We know it usually doesn't. So we want to make sure that we're following the principle of hire slow, fire fast. Okay, so the fix to being not surprised is actually designing really clever and thoughtful tests to make sure your candidates can do the things that you want them to do. I'm going to put the worksheet, because it's quite a comprehensive one, in the chat. So grab that, download, whatever you have to do. It's in the chat now. So where does this move the needle? Whenever we're implementing a system, we want to know what the benefit's going to be to our business. And there's three areas I've identified as to where this moves the needle. The first is the number of successful hires you will get per recruitment campaign. And that's something that you should measure. Can I get everyone to mute, please? Cool, thank you. Yeah, so successful hires per recruitment campaign, and that's something you should track over time. I ran a recruitment campaign. How successful was the hire? And we want to increase that ratio. The other thing where it's going to move the needle is speed to performance in the role. So how quickly do they perform once they start? And the other one is it really reduces management overhead. Making a wrong hire has lots of management overhead. You have to go and intervene, you're trying to fix, you're giving extra support to the person, and invariably you're probably not going to keep them. And so you've got to start the whole process again, which is both, obviously it's costly in money if you're going through recruiters, or just money to recruit yourself, but just the added effort and the fact that it takes you away from your plan, it takes you away from the momentum that you're trying to build. And so there's a key thought I want to kick this off with, that all recruitment is a combination of testing the candidate and selling the opportunity to work with you. Okay, so we have to hold those two things at once. But there's a mindset thing here. There's a mindset thing. And this is something I've really struggled to embody, but it's the candidate needs to prove themselves to me. I never help the candidate get hired. I used to fall into this trap all the time. I saw the potential in someone, I may have liked them, then I start feeding them leading questions without knowing, and I'm actually trying to get them hired, and that's a recipe for disaster. So if we come at it with, I've got this amazing opportunity for the right person, but they have to prove themselves that they're right for the role rather than me helping them. It's an easy trap to slip into. Some of us are much better at this than others, but particularly if our job is a helping business, it's a different mindset to get into. They're playing the role of the assessor. Okay, that's the first mindset. The other mindset here is, and this is from Seth Godin, is this notion that I can't work with you until I work with you. So we're trying to get a feel of how this is all going to go before we make the offer. And so if you're using a recruiter or you're running the 5-hour recruitment process, this all happens after you've got down to the last candidate or the remaining two. Okay, so the next thing is thinking about, this is the end of the recruitment process. It comes after one-on-one interviews, comes after group interviews, comes after reference checks. Okay, this is where we've got down to, I'm pretty confident that this person is going to be what they need to be. Now it's the prove it stage. Okay, and it's always role specific. It's always role specific. We're not trying to come up with a company-wide test. It's always role specific. And there's two ways to generate your tests. Before I get into the specific of the test, there's two ways to generate and think about it. The first one is, if you've hired for this role before, or you've got people in your organization in this role, or you know a lot about the role, then you want to list out, and I'm going to get you to do this right now, is think about the next role you're going to hire for. What are the annoyances you want to avoid in that role? How has the person in that role given you the shits before? Okay, where have they let you down, Ashley? I saw you smirk there. Okay, and so think about the role you're hiring for. Is it a sales role and you've hired people where they just didn't want to pick up the phone? They may have been good at sales, but they were fearful of rejection. So in the chat, please put some of the annoyances. I'd like to see what they are and we can build on these for our tests. Being slow, so there's a speed element. Punctuality. Lack of common sense, critical thinking. Yes, Nick? You're going to bring someone on. What would really give you the shits knowing what you've had working with people before? Because these are kind of like, we want to avoid these. So there's two things we have to test. What we want to avoid and what we want to ensure that the person has. Lack of care, lack of initiative, miscommunication, double booking, things being missed. Okay, no one here that I can see has put anything role specific. So these ones might be your generalized tests that you do. Talking too much to other staff, decreasing productivity. Yep, I can test for that. Absolutely, absolutely. So these we can start to not creating productive tasks when it's quiet. So that's an initiative thing. That's an initiative thing. A lot of the initiative stuff I would suggest would come via your reference checks when you're doing the background checks on the candidates, because you can ask very specific open-ended questions, scores out of 1 to 10 to see what that person was like in terms of their behavior before. Okay, so once we've got our list of annoyances, we're going to then call on our job description, or as we call them at BGB, the position commitment. Okay, the position commitment is what we're going to be talking about here. So in your worksheet, you will notice that I'm going to scroll down to, I've got a position commitment of a role that I'm hiring for starting next week, which is head of marketing for us. And obviously it's got all of the bits that we need, the accountabilities, the key measures, the lead learning indicators, the responsibilities of the role, but I've highlighted this bit here, the knowledge, skills, and experience. Okay, so it's the knowledge, skills, and experience that this is where the tests are going to come from. And I've got a list of skills, a list of knowledge that I need, and the attributes that the person wants. And you can see these in your worksheet, but this is where the test comes from. So if we break down the test format and think about it in two levels, you've got junior to mid-range roles, and then you've got senior roles, and they require different levels of testing. Okay, so for anything technical, you actually want to observe them doing the thing they need to do in the role. Okay, so if I was hiring a hairdresser, okay, if I was hiring a hairdresser, I actually need to see them cut hair. Because they may come to you with they've worked in all the best salons, they've won these awards, they've got customer testimonials, they've got their portfolio of work. That's great. That got you to this stage. Now I need to see you do it. And we need to be able to have it in live, and we need to be able, or as close to live as possible, in order to see how their technical proficiency goes. And they'll either pass or they'll fail on that. That's pretty simple when it's technical. If you are hiring a marketer, you might want to see them critique an ad campaign, suggest changes, and so you can see how they would work through it. And you would actually sit there with them. So that's what they would do in a specific situation. For other junior roles where it's not technical, let's say it's a floor salesperson for Ashley, or it's someone on the phone, or it's an admin person, and we can do tasks related scenarios. But I like to think about the situation that's going to in the role that's going to get them unstuck. Okay, the situation that's going to get them unstuck. And I gave that example earlier about the salesperson who won't pick up the phone. Back when I was CEO of Eltrent, we had a call center team of 8 to 10 at any given time. And they were juniors. They were very juniors. We have a very rigid scripted sales process. We could get someone with our onboarding up to converting at 70% plus within 2 weeks of starting. But the number one thing we noticed that was holding people back was their self-beliefs, or their beliefs around money and sales and interruption and their interpersonal blockers, the fear that they had. So before we hired them, we'd actually get them into the office. We would give them 4 phone numbers of people who had lessons the day before. They would sit amongst the team and we'd go, okay, here's your script to ring up these customers. They had a lesson yesterday. You're getting feedback on how their lesson was. Okay. Now, were they going to do it to any standard that would be the high performing in the job? No, that wasn't the point. We wanted to see how eagerly they picked up the phone, how well they threw themselves into that really embarrassing, awkward situation. And we had people who had had interviewed really well, had done similar roles in the past, who literally said, I can't do this. It's too scary. We go, okay, well, this role's not for you. So they actually stopped at the test. They did it. And there were other ones who just really fumbled through, and they were shit, but you could tell that they lent into it. They were fine. They just dialed again. And that's what we were looking for. We were testing for that behavioral thing that we were after. Then when we go to senior hires, and this one is critical because we're not actually testing specific technical skills, how they might operate on a daily basis. We're actually testing for the level of ownership that they'll take in the role, the level of results focused, that we want to see how their experience comes through and how they think about something. If we go back to that message I gave you or that mindset frame in the beginning, was I'm assessing the candidate. They are proving themselves to me. I don't help them get hired. You'll see in the worksheet here and I love this test. Okay, I love this test. And what it is, we ask them to come in, and this is the final stage. Look, I want to make an offer, but I've just got a couple of things that we need to get done. And I want you to come in for an hour, and I want you to present to the senior team your plan for the first 6 months in the role, including the keys to your success. There is no other instruction there. And it's deliberate that there's no other instruction. I want to see how they go about coming up with something cohesive that makes sense. It might not be exactly right because they haven't got all the information, but I'm listening for the 4 C's. Okay, I want to know that they are concise, that they don't waffle. And I saw Elon Musk do this on a video recently. He goes, I only ask one interview question of my senior staff and my engineers. Tell us about the problems you solved in the past and tell me how you solved them. He says most people don't know how they did it. They just got there in the end. And you cannot hire those people in your business in a senior role. If they don't know how they did it, they won't know how to replicate it. And conciseness is the first key to this. When that is punchy, punchy, punchy. The next one is confidence, that they are speaking with confidence when they outline their plan for your business. The other one is clarity. Am I following their words? Are they giving it to me straight? Are they using words like brand awareness? That's for a marketer. I don't want to hear. So there's, things we can generally try and remove any of the blockers, and we'll find some gaps and we'll look into those gaps, and all of that kind of wishy-washy language is not a good sign in a senior person. And then the last thing, and it's the least important, is you're listening for the actual content of what they say. The first three are the most important, that they're concise, they're confident, and they're clear in what they're saying about how they're outlining the plan. And the really key thing here is that we don't give them much. I actually like springing this on them the day before. Okay, so look, we've got one more interview and it's going to be next Monday. And then on maybe Friday afternoon, let's say it's Tuesday, on Monday afternoon, I'm going to call them and say, you're coming in tomorrow. This is actually what I want you to do. Why? Because in the role, they're going to have to work quickly. They're going to have to pull stuff out of a hat. They're going to have to be able to think on the spot. They're going to have to work under pressure. And I've had people say back, no, you haven't given me enough time. I'm not doing that. I give them another chance. And I go, you want to think about your answer? And then I go, yeah, no, it's not enough time. And I'll call it off. I'll call it off because someone on 150 plus needs to be able to do that. They need to be able to do it. Then there's test 2 for a senior person. I still do it for junior people. And this is what Annette Cross has affectionately named the weird test. Okay, so anyone before we hire them, we have, and depending on the culture of your business or what you like to do, it's either a lunch with them, or particularly if it's a general manager and you're going to hire a general manager, it's drinks or a dinner with the partner of the person you're going to hire. It's wild. Ashley, did you go through this?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about it. What was the experience like?
Well, Matt lives quite far away from me. He's in Arcadia and I'm in the Shire. So we all got a train to Chatswood, and yeah, we had dinner with Matt's wife and my partner. Mm-hmm. And my partner's name is also Matt, so that's also fun. It was good. And
why do you think Matt did that for you?
Because you suggested he do that.
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks for being so helpful.
No, he obviously wanted, I mean, we've known each other for a long time, so it's a little bit different, but he obviously wanted to make sure that, we had values that aligned with each other and I could be trusted going out and representing the business, talking to really suppliers and things
really
like
that. Value thing. It's really that values thing. Yeah. And why do we get the partner along? Because if you're going to be a CEO or C-suite or general manager level, there's going to be times when you're going to have to work outside of hours, where you're going to have to pull an all-nighter, as a trite and saying. And I've had clients who have found when that comes up over after work drinks, and then the partner's going, oh, no, I didn't agree to that. You need to be home for the kids at 4. And I go, oh, interesting, because that's not what was told to me in the interview. I've run this test with a senior person who was going to be head of franchise development for me. And it was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe. And at about 45 minutes into lunch, he started dropping his guard and was talking about how much he loved Donald Trump. And I go, okay, this is getting a bit weird. Not that that would disqualify someone. Then he came out with the line of, how do you teach Asians to drive? I went, right, this is not going to happen. Okay, and this is why it's the weird test. You're actually trying to get the person to drop their guard and see if they are a real wild card and you don't want them in your business. So that's the 2 ones for the senior one, the very vague instruction about the 6 months ahead, and then some kind of social setting where we can really get to understand what that person is like. Also want to talk about 2 other types of tests that I think are always good to do, and that is behavioral tests like DISC, and there are some others. I wouldn't recommend using Myers-Briggs. It's not very reliable, but DISC is always a good one. And there are lots of companies out there that use behavioral tests to actually hire. I think this just becomes it might help you disqualify if other things are a red flag. Okay, so if you are hiring someone for an admin role, And you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm on the fence or not. And they come back with a very high ID, like me, someone like that. And you go, okay, I have to call this off because it's just too much weighting against them. Then the other type is there are lots of online platforms where you can have tests, like Test Gorilla, and they'll do either thinking tests, borderline intelligence tests, but also skills specific tests. Like you can have someone do a HubSpot skills test or a Meta Ads skills test. Customer service, there's an attention to detail one that I use, and there's a problem solving one that I use. And this is where some of the rules for effective testing comes in, and particularly around these online tests. All right, is you must predetermine the passing grade for your test prior to administering the test. Okay, you must work out what the passing grade is. So the first time we used Test Gorilla was when we were hiring for Andreas's role, because Jamie was going on maternity leave. And we ran the first campaign. We got some candidates. We got down to one person, and she was pretty good. And so I had to do 2 tests. One of them was I need to see her work because accounts as part of the role. I needed to see her work in Xero. And she had promised that she'd done lots of work in Xero. And I said, okay, I'm going to share my screen. It was on Zoom. I want you to show me how I do this. Show me how I do this. You're going to tell me what to do with the mouse. And she fucking couldn't do it. Okay. It was bizarre. Like, it's the first time I've gone, oh my God. Just the difference in what was said to what could be done was amazing. Then we did the critical thinking test and the attention to detail test. And we got the scores back. And they were like between 50 and 60%. And I said to Jamie at the time, I go, I don't know what this means. We have to take the test. And so Jamie and I did it, and we both came back in 80s and 90s or something. And we went, okay, there's the baseline. So the lesson here is any test you build, get the person who already does the role or yourself to do the test. Whether it's an observational test live, whether it's one of these online ones. So you actually go, here's the baseline, and we need someone above that. Okay, and then we want to build a rubric for the results of the test. This is if you're not doing the online. This is if you're doing the situational, the technical, or the planned delivery test. And so I go back to the worksheet, and I'll show you how I've built this. All right, so we've got the worksheet here. So I pull out all of the attributes, skills, and knowledge. And what I've done is I've built a candidate scorecard for the role, and we'll put these on the portal for you. I've got the outcomes. These are the accountabilities. They're measurable. We can point out whether they're done or not. They're smart. And the whole way through the recruitment process, I will be taking my own notes, and then after each interview, after each test, I'll come back and I'll adjust my ratings and comments here. But what's really important here is when I'm interviewing, this is for the interview stage, I'm putting a scale of 1 to 5 where I think they lie on each of the skills needed and some comments. So once the candidate's gone through the interview stage and I've filled all of this up, what I come down to at the bottom is, okay, here's what's in doubt. There's some red flags in this skill area. They've made some huge claims here in this skill area, but I'm not really seeing any conviction, conciseness, or clarity there. I need to design a test, or I need to include these in my test. The things that I'm really not sure about, key to the role, my key annoyances, and I can put those into my test. And this comes out of all of the interviews and all of the things I've taken so far. Then what it becomes, so this is side on, is there a flip? There we go, is a rubric. So the things that matter to you, the skill areas that you want to test for, you list them, and then you've got a scale 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's actually telling us what the required standard is on each of these. Okay, so if I take this one out, I'm about to hire a senior marketer, a head of marketing for BGB. Test and measure is actually the most important thing that I want in this person. The fact that they constantly use data to make changes and inform their changes, come up with a hypothesis, run the test, get the results, adjust, and repeat. The best marketers do that. The ones who avoid accountability don't. They talk about brand and colors and awareness and image and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm hiring for. Big companies might want that, but for me in this role, it's not what I want. So you can see here with the test and measure one, a score of 4. They always begin with the end in mind. They clearly structure tests with timelines and disciplined data collection. At a level 3, they generally maintain good testing practices, sometimes does it in their head. So they go, I'm keeping score in my head and then I adjust. There's no real rhythm to it. Shows limited ability to plan, document, and run tests is level 2. And then the worst one is struggles with basic test and measure practices, uses language that lacks accountability. So when they present to me their 6-month plan, I'm listening out for what they're talking here. When I go to the Q&A part of it, I'm going to push and tease in that and I'm going, okay, where do they fit? And we've got to give a very clear level here. And I'm looking for an average of 3.5 from this person as a score before I go ahead. Then, so those are the 3 tools. You're coming out with your position commitment, your job description, taking those, putting them into a job scorecard. Then we're deciding what we actually need to test for. Then we can decide which tests we need to do. And those will be specific to you. Those will be specific to the role. And the first ones you run will be a little bit odd. They'll be a little bit awkward. And then we'll get better and better at them. As long as we track that metric of successful hires per campaign. And we do that after 3 months of them starting. That's when we can measure. Okay, they got to 3 months and they're performing, tick, successful. They're not, then it wasn't a successful hire. I got a story where a few years ago, Annette and I were increasingly frustrated, and a lot of you put this in your annoyances. We were increasingly frustrated with the level of initiative. Curiosity was a really big one. We decided that curiosity formed taking initiative, common sense, critical thinking. So it was all about curiosity. And for the 2 interviews that we would do one-on-one, or the 2-on-1 or whatever it might be, after the group interview, we would put a stuffed toy in the meeting room. If by the end of 2 hours with that person, they hadn't asked about it, we were very concerned about their curiosity. Okay, it was big, right? It was a big teddy bear. It was weird, looked totally out of place. And the amount of people who just let it go, now that people come and go, what's that about? And go, you're onto it. You can see your world around. I have no idea whether it was genius or not, but it did increase the number of successful hires per campaign. All right, so just where we are now, if you can drop in the chat, what's been your BFO so far? What's been the best thing you've heard? Put it into the chat. If we got, take them out for a drink. That's good. Ask them specifically how they solved a problem. That's good. Do more accurate tests to analyze each skill and ability. Yep, so breaking it down. I knew I needed to do more testing, so it gives me something tangible. You have a question, we'll get to that. Candidate needs to prove themselves. Never help them get hired. Good get, Carmen. That one's an easy trap to not notice you're in. Awesome. Awesome. So Ashley, what's your question?
Yes, I'm just not sure, like, because I haven't used Test Gorilla, would they do that, outside of the interview? And if they did, is there a risk that they would falsify their results or maybe do the tests multiple times and things like that? So I'm wondering if you would be better off doing it when they're with you.
Test Gorilla I'm pretty confident in it. They have a camera on you the whole time.
Oh, okay.
And you get one shot at it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And it times them.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see like the level of activity over the time they were doing it. The time's important too. Like if it takes someone 20 minutes to get a score of 50% and someone 10 minutes to get a score of 90%, that's pretty telling. Right. And you get these really awkward 1-minute photos that you can see. So if someone was there with them or, yeah, they'd have to get help. They're not answers you could look up in a book. Okay. And if they had to, it would slow them down too. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah. But you're right, it is a weaker test because you're not there observing them. Mm. Yeah. And it might be, you might want to bring them into the office to do it. You can just see someone in action. The other part too, particularly if you've got a big and growing team, is you can, for that lunch or that social thing, is get a lot of the team members there and just watch how they interact and then get feedback from your team as to what they say. What other questions are there? No one has questions. Hey, Bianca, how are you?
Hey, Stephen, I knew that you'd be picking on me now because you haven't seen me in a while.
I haven't seen you. It's
But I'm smiling because I sent my thing to Sam and I was wondering why you didn't mention me. And I was like, maybe you just skipped over my answer. And then Sam was like, hey, Bianca, you sent that directly to me. So anyways, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, very well.
I'm enjoying this. This is good.
Yeah? Everyone's crystal clear on it? Who wants to work through a hire they're going to do soon? Marco. All right, take yourself off mute, Marco.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hello, mate.
Steve, this time came up perfectly because I just was at a cafe meeting with a new bookkeeper.
Okay.
Now, I haven't had this sort of infrastructure in my business because my last bookkeeper's been for like 7-8 years. So looking through this position commitment now, the guy is, let's say, for example, the guy is super bland. He's an older gentleman and he's very vanilla. There wasn't much personality there. Does that really matter, Steve?
You're asking me whether it matters?
Well, you're saying like this guy wouldn't ask about a big teddy bear behind me on my desk. He would.
Yeah, but he's not is he in a curiosity-led role? It's not about, that wasn't for everyone. That was
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's run through it. Yeah, cool.
Okay.
I'd like to do this exercise.
So it's a bookkeeper?
Yes, sir.
Full time?
3 days a week.
3 days a week. Okay. What are you worried about? What could go wrong in this hire, Marco?
He doesn't. We're a very testosterone driven office here, and he might not gel with the culture.
Okay, so you're worried about culture fit. Okay, let's just zoom out first. Forget the candidate. What are you worried about in the role? What could go wrong, if any candidate is wrong?
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know if you can work with them until you work with them, right?
Yeah, but if you hire the wrong candidate, forget this guy. Just anyone that is wrong for your bookkeeper role, where will it fuck up?
His output is shit. Like he's not entering data right. I mean,
okay.
He's not.
So attention to detail is important for this role.
Okay.
Yep. What else is important?
What else is important with the bookkeeper? I'd like somebody who's also got some autonomy, and this guy is senior, which was appealing. I wanted someone without the blinkers on and pulling me aside and say, hey, Marco, have you considered this? Much like what Andreas did with that report. And he said to me, hey, have you noticed that this cash flow thing, if you adjust this and this, I want my guy to be doing that.
Okay, so you want elements of a CFO in your bookkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep. So
Okay,
you want them to have some level of skill in management accounting is what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
And
what software do you use for your books?
Xero.
Okay, so Xero.
Yeah, he's fine on that. Yeah.
How do you know?
Told me, and it's on all over his website. 00000. Okay,
I'll smiling, Marco. I saw all the faces. I'm glad you've been paying attention the whole time, buddy.
Understood. Okay.
Don't just tell me, prove it.
Okay, prove it.
All right. So, okay, you've got a culture fit thing. All right, let's deal with that. The test that you could design for that is definitely a lunch or a barbecue on a Friday afternoon in the workshop where he attends. And so he gets to experience your highly testosterone-fueled work environment at its best. And so do your team get to interact with him and you get to observe. You're just observing how he behaves in that environment. Then you get to sit down after and go, this is what it's like here. If I offer you this job, you've got to be able to deal with it. So let's talk through it. So that's the culture one. Okay. Attention to detail, I would use a Test Gorilla test for that. There is a very good one on attention to detail. There's lots of them online. This one is really good to get ChatGPT to design it. Say, I've got a bookkeeper I want to look at. I'm worried about their attention to detail skills. Can you design a test for me so I can pick up how focused they are on detail?
Okay.
Management accounting, and this is the one where I would go, okay, I'm going to give you our profit and loss, our balance sheet, and our cash flow statement of cash flows. When you get to the office, I'm going to give you 20 minutes to have a look through them. And then I want you to give me 5 things we could do to get better financial performance out of our business. And that's where you're sitting and letting it wash over you, looking for those 4 C's.
Yeah, and that comes the consciousness, confidence, clarity. So continue. Yeah, keep going.
And then
Yeah,
zero, figure out a gnarly kind of thing that has to be done in your business that's unique to your business. Get him on a computer in front of you and go, okay, these are all out of base. They need to be refunded, reconciled, and done. I'm going to watch you do it.
Okay. And you were saying about a 6-month plan. Like, please come to our, that's an example, come to our office on Friday, present a leadership team, a plan for your first 6 months in the role. What, apart from listening for the 4 C's, what sort of content should be in that for this role?
Well, the content is specifically that. You just said, like, that session you did with Reyes on Cash Flow Story, where you got actual actionable insights from him, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the content piece you're actually after. It's quite narrow, but it's going, did he give me 5 things that I could go today to prove the financial performance of this business? Or was it kind of really wishy-washy and not really? It was very generic. It wasn't specific to us. He didn't really understand our financials. That's the content piece.
Okay, cool.
The other is all language, body language, and delivery is what the other things are about. People who are super confident and competent can describe how something it needs to be done very simply.
Thanks. Cool. Right.
Have you got your position commitment built for this role?
No, no, I have not.
It starts there. Then you get your scorecard. And you can back score from all of the interactions you've had so far. Then you'll know what's left. And you go, okay, what am I actually worried about here? What can I prove? The fact that he's got 0 on his website, I could build a website with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
It's unlikely, but this is about ticking all the boxes, because the cost of getting it wrong, and particularly a role like this, will be a shit fight.
And it's not cheap. He's not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. And Eric and I were debating, should we just get him in for 1 day a week, because he's more senior and he seems to have these elements of CFO in him, and get a cheaper, more affordable data entry junior. What do you think about that? I've always been like, pay the extra 30% more, make it collaborate, have a one-stop shop, less Chinese whispers. But what are your thoughts?
It's a process of going back to your org chart, your list of total accountabilities. Any of those accountabilities that can be done cheaper, the accountabilities and responsibilities that can be done cheaper, you should be getting them done by someone who's cheaper. Because if you're paying someone $100 an hour to do a $30 an hour job, that's costing you $70 an hour. Not only that, you're costing you the opportunity cost of what that $100 an hour person could be doing if they weren't doing it.
Agreed, but don't you place some weight on the fact that there's a risk of dilution between, like, relaying information from one person to another? Separate roles.
There's always a risk as your company grows and your org chart gets bigger, but that's where your communication channels and your meeting rhythm and reporting all come in to stop that.
Okay.
But I think this is a bit more of an exercise for you, Marco, in getting really deep in the job design. And you're looking at it going, is this really one person's role? Or is this 2 roles or 3 roles? Or is there part of it that can be done by this person who's got spare capacity over here? And this is the idea of a pragmatic org chart. You have your org chart. You have your desired org chart. If I could afford all of these great people, that's who I'd be hiring now. But the pragmatic one says, I can't afford that $200,000 person, but I need some of it done now. And there's only like 8 hours a week in those 2 things. I'm going to move those over to Freddie because he's got some spare capacity. And now that's solved for the moment. And then I can adjust as we grow.
Thank you.
All roads lead back to the org chart, apparently.
Yes. I've heard.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Does that help, Marco?
Yes, it does, Stephen. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? Take yourself off mute.
I'm going to try and hire a VA with your outline that you gave me,
Huh?
the process and contract and whatnot.
Yep.
So, I mean, probably not a lot to talk about because you talk about it all in that process, but sort of pipe in.
Yeah. So are you hiring them in the Philippines?
Well, I think I'll try that virtual finder that you
Yep.
said. Is that Philippines?
Yeah, it is.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
It is. It is. And, there's lots of people here that use Philippine VAs. I know Umesh does quite successfully. We've done it quite successfully. The key to it is the preparation work that you do prior in terms of how systematized the tasks are that you want them to do. If you're hiring particularly junior kind of admin roles, just a general VA from the Philippines, you are not going to get, I'm happy to be proved wrong, you're not going to get someone who will think out of the box, who will show initiative, who will spot the teddy bear in the corner. Like, it's just not in their culture. They're very compliant, very diligent, very hardworking. So there has to be, here's the checklist, you do this on a Monday morning, like that. Okay.
Yep.
So what you're actually going to be testing for is one of the processes you want them to do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Watch them work through it on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Because I like the one that you've sent through because it's more specific on the job that they will be doing. So they can sort of qualify, that company can qualify them pre them coming to me.
Yep.
If I say, like, I want someone that's proficient in online systems, just data entry and stuff like that, knows their way around a computer, and they'll send me people like that versus someone that needs to do something else.
And that company should do DISC profiles for you.
Okay.
The virtual staff finder should come through. So if you want someone like that and they come with a high I and they a bit sloppy in other areas, that might be a concern. You want someone who's very focused, very detail oriented, very diligent, and you can test for all of those things live. You can do Test Gorilla with them.
What's Test Gorilla? Don't know.
A website that has thousands of tests. A lot of them are free. Some of them are
right.
paid, but the ones you want for this will be free.
Gotcha.
Yep.
What should I be expecting to pay them?
Just an admin VA?
Yeah. To begin with, yeah.
Low end 600 US a month, high end 900.
So are they full time only?
Yeah, or halve it. They usually just do 20 hours or 40 hours.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
And did Andreas give you our VA agreement?
Yep. So you implement that?
Yep. And be very specific and clear before you make the offer to them in any of the interviews. Go, if you're going to give them a 40-hour thing, that if you find them working for another client, they're out instantly. Like, be very firm on it. This is the game lots of them play.
Oh, yeah. So they do 2 at a time.
Yep.
Clip tickets. How would you know that?
No, you'll find out. Like, their just response times are low. They send you an email that wasn't meant for you. They're not clever in how they do it.
No.
I've had it twice in the past.
Okay.
I can see Umesh nodding his head here.
Yeah, he said
one of my mates sussed it out. One of my mates sussed it out when one of his VAs was clearly riding a moped around Manila when she was having a team meeting with him, and he was like, "What are you actually doing? You're clearly not in front of a computer." So, good story.
And the other one is there's always a fucking blackout or an errand to run. Yeah, those are red flags. But obviously make it very clear up front.
I get that here in Sydney too, by the way, Sam. So can't always be down to being Filipino.
The blackout.
Marco's latest excuse.
I'm sure.
All right.
Does anyone get that as well, like with Filipinos, that they say, oh, like, like my energy bill is due and I can't pay it, so I need my invoice to be paid earlier or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, my son's school fees. These are
all the things that suck. Yeah.
Yep. And that's why an agreement is.
So with this virtual finder, is this a company so do they just source the person and then you deal directly with them versus a company where you go through them and you essentially pay the company and the company pays the staff?
Yep. And the only tangible value difference I've seen, and because they're huge price difference, is tech security is what the offshoring company who's based in Australia will do for you. But you're going to pay through the roof for it. Like instead of your $6 US an hour, it could be 15, 18. And that's all going to the Australian company. But in terms of performance, everything like that, I haven't experienced any difference. I'm sure there might be to a slight degree. The other thing you would get is that a lot of those offshoring companies have offices. The person has to turn up. There's someone watching them. You can get timesheets that can give you that thing, but I'm not sure that it's worth the extra because you're not getting the arbitrage that you want then. The arbitrage is I can pay someone very cheap. That's good money for them, but it's not much here, and you want to capitalize on that. Yeah.
So, Stephen, can I just quickly ask you? So, is this Virtual Finder? Because I'm hiring one right now as well. This is like a platform where there'll be VAs looking for work, and you're then employing them directly. Is that right? Or
yeah, they're essentially a mini version of what you do for Filipino VAs. They're an Australian company, but they're based in the UK. And so they'll put out on all of their Facebook groups and all of their networks in the Philippines, we're looking for this role. They'll vet down to 3. They'll give you 3 with their resume, their DIS profile, everything like that. Then you interview them. You can do as many interviews as you like and test, and then you can make an offer. And then the deal is between you and the VA. You just pay I think it's 600 US finder's fee.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Zyron, you've asked, do you connect the assessment rubric with career path and or dollar incentives? If no career growth ops, what do you...
Yeah,
so explain that.
So it's more of a curiosity question. I'm not sure if it's part of testing candidates, but with the assessment rubric, obviously it feels like it's a great foundation to measure performance. So how early would you be able to communicate incentives and career paths within the business? But if it's, for example, a GM role within my business, there's kind of a ceiling above that. So you can't really incentivize career growth, but then incentives from performance can kind of insert there, potentially.
Are you planning on growing quite aggressively, Zara?
Yes.
So what I'm hearing, there's lots of career opportunities. The business has to grow, and then there's lots. And look, you're right. It is a different area. It's a different system. This is what's called the Brightness of Future system.
Okay.
You introduce that to them very early on in the onboarding process, at the risk of boring Bianca again, a 45-minute conversation where I tell people how they're going to leave. That immediately rolls into, so where are you going to go? What are your hopes and dreams?
Yeah.
And then we go, and then I identify the gap between where they want to go and where they are now, which is always ongoing. And then they need to design their learning plan, which is part of that Brightness of Future. And if you hit these and the business grows, then the world is yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay.
This is kind of separate. They're kind of separate things here.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
All right, into the chat. What are you going to get done? What are you going to sort out in the week ahead? What are your commitments? One thing into the chat. Hopefully it aligns with your one thing plan. Sam's going to start hiring the VA. Good for you. Umesh is going to get into Test Gorilla. Love to see the feedback. Make sure you take the test yourself. So, get started hiring process, admin support. Love this for you, Bianca. Develop the position commitments for existing roles in the biz. Very good. Zyron, was it more detailed than you thought it would be?
It is simple. Yeah, simpler. It's not like a 10-page doc that I was assuming. Like it's a pretty very 1 to 2 page. You can give each role that page or that doc, and it's pretty easy to follow.
Yep.
I want to keep it simple, stupid, so I like it.
Absolutely. But the amount of thought to get it to that simplicity is quite a lot.
I know. Yeah.
Yep. It's going to work on tests and better planning for hiring. You got some hiring coming up, Sophia?
No, we have already hired everyone. For the future, I'll keep it.
So why are you going to work on it this week?
Just to keep it to have it ready, I guess.
Okay.
Since we have this today.
Okay. Good. Get back to your plan, maybe. All right. Ben, what are you doing? And I've heard everyone, I think.
Yeah, nothing specific with the hiring, I think, at the moment. I think it's
no. It's just what are you going to get done in the next week?
Oh, yeah. I would say, let me have a look. got a few things I've got to be doing as far as a few things with the subcontractors to sort of make a
You're looking at your version of
contract.
this. Ben, you're looking at your version of this.
Every now and then, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But no, contract for subcontractors.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, I'm going to leave you there. I'm going to run. Hopefully you've got clearer on how to sift through the nonsense that your candidates are going to be throwing at you and design some really cool tests to work through. And look, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes. Drop any things you've learned into the WhatsApp group, because that's a really good share, because we can all learn how to do this better and make sure that each hire we get isn't wasting money and time, and they're actually performing like they say they can. So have a good week, everyone. This week's Q&A is on Thursday, and it's with Andrew. So just check your calendar there. I'll be in Queenstown skiing, so he's going to be in there to answer your questions.
Enjoy
See you,
yourself. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy Queenstown, mate.
I will. See you later.